What separates teams that learn from heartbreak from those that repeat it? There's a specific kind of rage that comes from losing Game 7 of the World Series. Not the hollow disappointment of a first-round exit. Not the frustration of missing the playoffs by a game or two. This is something far more visceral, the soul-crushing agony of being 27 outs away from immortality and watching it slip through your fingers like sand. The Toronto Blue Jays lived that nightmare against the Los Angeles Dodgers in 2025, and if the intelligence emerging from their front office is any indication, they're channeling that pain into something dangerous. The question reverberating through baseball circles isn't whether Toronto will be aggressive this offseason. It's how aggressive they're prepared to be. And according to ESPN's Kiley McDaniel, the answer might involve a strategic pivot that could fundamentally reshape this lineup's identity. Enter Munetaka Murakami, the Japanese slugger who represents far more than a backup plan. Let's establish the landscape with brutal honesty. The Blue Jays have been heavily linked to Kyle Tucker, the Houston Astros superstar outfielder who embodies exactly the kind of proven, elite talent that championship-caliber organizations covet. Tucker's combination of power, plate discipline, and defensive versatility makes him one of the most sought-after players on the market. Landing Tucker would be a statement. A declaration that Toronto isn't merely trying to return to the World Series, but to absolutely dominate it. His left-handed bat would provide perfect balance in a lineup anchored by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. His defensive capabilities would upgrade the outfield immediately. His postseason experience would add veteran leadership to a clubhouse still processing October heartbreak. But here's where the narrative takes a fascinating turn. What if Tucker signs elsewhere? What if the bidding war escalates beyond even Toronto's newly demonstrated willingness to spend? What if the Yankees, Dodgers, or some other deep-pocketed franchise makes an offer the Blue Jays simply can't match without crippling their roster flexibility? That's precisely where Murakami enters the conversation, and this isn't some consolation prize we're discussing. The Murakami profile, more than international intrigue, Munetaka Murakami isn't just another international prospect hoping to make the transition to Major League Baseball. This is a player who has absolutely terrorized Nippon professional baseball pitching with the kind of consistent dominance that transcends league differences and statistical adjustments. We're talking about a left-handed power hitter with raw exit velocity data that makes analytics departments salivate. According to McDaniel's reporting, the Yankees, a franchise that has built its recent evaluation philosophy around exit velocity and age, are circling precisely because Murakami checks both boxes emphatically. The power profile is undeniable. Murakami's ability to drive the ball with authority to all fields isn't just impressive by NPB standards, it translates to the kind of production that changes innings in the majors. His swing mechanics generate elite bat speed. His approach suggests advanced pitch recognition. His track record demonstrates consistent production against quality pitching. This isn't speculative projection based on limited data. This is years of sustained excellence at the highest level of Japanese baseball, facing pitchers who have successfully transitioned to MLB and thrived. Why Toronto makes perfect sense for Murakami. The Blue Jays just committed massive resources to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., locking down one of baseball's premier talents for the long haul. That move signaled something crucial. Toronto's competitive window isn't some distant future projection. It's right now. When you make that kind of investment, you don't sit back and hope the rest of the roster fills itself out. You double down. You triple down if necessary. Murakami represents the kind of calculated risk that separates good front offices from great ones. While other teams might balk at the uncertainty of international transitions, Toronto has demonstrated both the infrastructure and the cultural environment to help international players thrive. They've seen firsthand how elite talent from Japan can transform a lineup, and they understand that the learning curve, while real, is often shorter than skeptics predict. Imagine this offensive configuration for a moment. Bichette setting the table with his speed and contact ability. Guerrero providing thunder in the middle of the order. and Murakami adding another dimension of left-handed power that forces opposing managers into impossible decisions. That's not just good, that's potentially elite. That's the kind of offensive firepower that can carry you through the inevitable cold stretches every team faces during a 162-game grind. It's the kind of lineup depth that prevents one injury from derailing an entire season. Murakami could slot into the middle of Toronto's order and immediately provide protection for Guerrero, creating a nightmare scenario for opposing pitchers trying to navigate the heart of that lineup. Do you pitch around Guerrero and face Murakami? Do you challenge Guerrero and risk the damage he can inflict? These are the kinds of no-win situations that championship offenses create. Let's address the elephant in the room: money. The Guerrero contract was massive, and adding either Tucker or Murakami represents another significant financial commitment. But here's the thing about being one game away from championship: it clarifies priorities real fast. Toronto's front office has demonstrated they're not operating under artificial budget constraints when championship-caliber talent is available. They've shown they understand that windows don't stay open forever, that the combination of talent, health, and timing that got them to Game 7 might not align perfectly again for years. Murakami, while certainly not cheap, likely represents a more manageable financial commitment than Tucker would command. That's not to diminish his value. It's simply the reality of international signings versus established MLB stars hitting free agency. If Toronto can secure comparable production at a lower cost, that flexibility could allow them to address other roster needs, whether that's bullpen depth, starting pitching insurance, or defensive upgrades. The competition: who's standing in Toronto's way? McDaniel's report lays out the competition, and it's formidable. The Cubs are retooling with an influx of young talent and have the financial flexibility to make a splash. The Giants, perpetually searching for that missing offensive piece, could certainly make a compelling pitch. And if the Astros move Christian Walker's contract, they'd have both the need and the resources to stay in the hunt. The Cubs are building toward something. The Giants are trying to find something. The Blue Jays? They already had something. They know exactly what it feels like, and they came up one game short. That's a different kind of motivation entirely. This isn't about hope or potential or 5-year plans. This is about a franchise that proved it can compete with the best team in baseball and lost by the slimmest of margins. When you're that close, every decision becomes magnified. Every roster spot matters. Every at-bat in a crucial October game could be the difference between another heartbreaking Game 7 loss and a championship parade. The intangible factor, hunger and culture. Let's not overlook the psychological element here. Adding a player of Murakami's caliber, someone who has dominated at the highest level of Japanese baseball and is hungry to prove himself on the MLB stage, brings an edge to a clubhouse. It sends a message to the rest of the roster that management is all in, that they're not content with moral victories or good seasons. Murakami would arrive in Toronto with everything to prove and nothing to lose. He'd be fighting to establish himself as an elite MLB hitter, to validate the investment Toronto made in him, to prove that the transition from NPB to MLB is something he can handle seamlessly. That hunger, that desperation to succeed, often translates into maximum effort and production that exceeds pure talent evaluations. The Blue Jays would be betting that Murakami's motivation, combined with their player development infrastructure and supportive organizational culture, would accelerate his adjustment period and unlock his full potential quickly. The strategic flexibility: Tucker or Murakami? Not Tucker, then nothing, of course. None of this means the Blue Jays have given up on Tucker. McDaniel's reporting specifically frames Murakami as a contingency plan, a pivot option if the Tucker pursuit doesn't materialize. And make no mistake, if Toronto can land Tucker, they probably should. He's the more proven commodity, the safer bet, the player with years of MLB production demonstrating he can handle the pressure and competition. But the fact that they're even considering Murakami as a legitimate alternative tells you something crucial about how this front office is thinking. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket. They're not going to let a bidding war for one player prevent them from upgrading the roster. They have options. They have flexibility. and they have the financial resources to execute whatever plan makes the most sense. That's the mindset of a team that learned something from their World Series run. They learned that talent wins, that depth matters, and that you can't be afraid to make bold moves when the opportunity presents itself. The defensive positioning would need creative solutions, certainly. Murakami's most natural fit is likely at a corner position, either first base or an outfield spot, which means Toronto would need to get inventive with their alignment. But these are good problems to have. These are the kinds of roster puzzles that championship teams figure out because the offensive production makes it worthwhile. Modern baseball has shown repeatedly that defensive configurations can be optimized, that positional flexibility can be developed, and that offensive production often justifies defensive compromises, particularly when you're talking about adding elite power to a lineup that's one piece away from being unstoppable. The Toronto Blue Jays are at a crossroads that every franchise dreams of reaching. They're good enough to compete for championships right now. They have the financial backing to add elite talent, and they have a front office that seems to understand the urgency of the moment. Whether that elite talent ends up being Kyle Tucker or Munetaka Murakami might ultimately matter less than the fact that they're aggressively pursuing both. This is what championship-caliber organizations do. They don't settle. They don't make excuses about budget constraints or development timelines. They identify what they need, they go after it relentlessly, and they're willing to take calculated risks to get it. Losing in Game 7 can break a franchise, or it can galvanize one. Based on everything we're seeing from Toronto this offseason, they've chosen the latter. They're not satisfied with being close. They're not content with a great story and a valiant effort. They want the trophy, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get it, whether that means landing Tucker, pivoting to Murakami, or finding some other creative solution we haven't even considered yet. One thing is absolutely clear. The Blue Jays are coming back hungrier, more determined, and potentially more dangerous than ever. And for the rest of the American League, that should be a terrifying thought. What's your take? Is Murakami the right pivot if Tucker signs elsewhere, or should Toronto hold out for the proven MLB star? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and smash that like button if you're as fired up as we are about what this Blue Jays roster could become in 2026.